Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of the newspaper analysis from the UPSC perspective. Today we have taken up important articles from the last week's The Hindu and the Indian Express newspaper. Topics which we are going to cover today are displayed on your screen. Let's begin the discussion. Our first discussion is based on this article from the Indian Express, which was published on 14th April. Now, context of this article is that gangster turned politician Atiq Ahmed's son Asad and his aide Ghulam, both wanted in connection with the Umesh Pal murder case, were killed in an encounter on Thursday at Jhansi. Now, you should know that these encounters are also known as extrajudicial killings, and this extrajudicial killing is illegal execution. It is a disregard for basic human rights, which is right to life. Though there is no legal definition of extrajudicial killing, it is usually described as an unlawful killing of a person by any government authority or individual without any approval of legal proceedings or government order. Now, as you know, Article 20, Subclause 1 of the Indian Constitution provides the citizen with protection in respect of conviction for offences, and Article 21 with protection of life. So, these extrajudicial killing or unlawful killing is a clear violation of these human rights. Apart from this, such killings also violates the fundamental rights of the citizens as enshrined under Article 14, that is right to equality, as well as Article 22, that is right to be protected against arrest and detention. So in light of this incident, we'll try to understand various ethical issues involved in the encounter, especially fake encounters by the police. Now this article is quite important from ethics perspective because this case study, which came in year 2015, based on the incident in Kaganahalli school in Kolar, Karnataka, over the appointment of Dalit cook to prepare midday meals in the school. Now this shows that how a news article can become a case study in GS paper 4, which carries maximum weightage in terms of marks. So let's start our discussion. So the first ethical issue involved in this case is denial to natural justice. How? Because there is violation of rule of law. As criminal justice system should follow the principle of natural justice, and you should remember that principle of natural justice was propounded by Aristotle, which means the accused should be given chance to defend himself, but in case of encounters, real or fake, we lose this opportunity. So there is a violation of rule of law. So our next ethical issue is violation of human rights. As encounter is a direct violation of human rights propounded by United Nations, that is right to life, which is also a fundamental right under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. This was also observed by the Supreme Court in case of People Union for Civil Liberties versus State of Maharashtra. Another ethical issue is that it is against the principle of social contract. Now, this theory of social contract was propounded by Thomas Hobbes and John Locke. According to this theory, state is legally and morally obliged to ensure the welfare of its subject. But here, in case of encounters, state turns into a murderer, which is a clear-cut violation of the social contract. Another ethical issue in this case is that means compromise for ends. Generally, encounter is favored in name of fast delivery of justice. But while doing so, we forget the means adopted, as Mahatma Gandhi said that means are equally important to ends. But here, in case of encounter, police chooses to bypass the due prosecution through the judiciary. Now, next ethical issue in this case is misuse of authority. How? As police are empowered to fire on criminals in self-defense. But this power is being misused by police in several cases, like Hyderabad case, where encounter was found fake by the higher judiciary. So it is against virtue of integrity, which is one of the foundational values of civil services. Next ethical issue is erosion of trust in the judiciary. Now, when police became judges, then it may lead to erosion of trust of common people in judiciary. Now, another ethical issue is against the greatest good. Now, when a person is killed by the system, then others may turn into criminals to take revenge. So, here, instead of reducing crime, encounter culture may increase the crimes in society. Hence, encounter may harm the greatest good to the greatest number, as propounded by Bentham and J.S. Mill. Next ethical issue is false role modeling. Now, if a society celebrates some of the police officers as encounter specialists, then it will lead to creating a wrong role model for the society of non-violence and peace. It may shake the foundations of peace-loving Indian society. Another important ethical issue is lack of emotional intelligence. Now, most of the fake encounters are a result of lack of control of negative emotions. And what are such emotions? Like revenge, teaching a lesson, demonstration of power, etc. It shows the lack of quality of emotional intelligence. And this concept was propounded by Daniel Goleman. And the last ethical issue is lack of good governance. Now, encounter is considered a weapon to deal with dreaded criminals. Now, the question is how they become so dreaded without the backing of administrative system. So, presence of such dreaded criminals in society is an indicator of lack of effective governance, and that is good governance. Now, these are the important ethical issues involved in this case. Now, let's discuss few important way forward. Now, while suggesting a way forward in such case studies, you should keep in mind the stakeholders involved in the case. Why? Because it will help you to identify relevant points with ease and make your answer diversified. So, here the major stakeholders are criminals, police, judiciary, National Human Rights Commission, state government, NGO, and the general public. So, now with the help of these stakeholders, you can write important suggestions covering important dimensions like administration, philosophy, polity, etc. So, here we'll start with the first suggestion, that is to take strict action against criminals at the initial stage instead of waiting for turning into a dreaded criminal. Another important suggestion is decriminalization of politics, and it also includes avoiding political patronage to criminals. Now, this you can substantiate with the help of fact, that is, according to ADR survey, 40% of newly elected members of Rajya Sabha have criminal cases. Another suggestion is effective training of police personnel so that they can arrest the accused without using any extrajudicial measures, that is, encounter. Then, ethical training of police personnel so that they can realize the importance of human life and rule of law. Now, if you remember, these two, that is, effective training of police personnel and ethical training of police personnel, were important recommendations given by multiple police reforms commission since independence. Next suggestion is reducing political interference in the professional functioning of police. Now, next suggestion is making the criminal justice system smooth and faster. And for that, there can be separate special courts or fast track courts for a particular type of crime. And in this regard, Malamat Committee has given a plethora of recommendations to make criminal justice system efficient. Now, I believe you understand the importance of committee, data, fact, because this will substantiate your points, thereby can help you in fetching more marks in your mains examination. So, coming back to the next suggestion, that is number of judges per lakh population should be increased, because in India there are only 19 judges per 10 lakh people as per the law ministry. Next suggestion is that Human Rights Commission should play an active role in case of encounters because its sole mandate is to protect human rights in the country. Also, National Human Rights Commission should be empowered with more powers so that it can take action against any of the officials responsible for fake encounters. Now, next suggestion is that court should take suo motu cognizance of cases of encounters as they are entitled to be guardian of the fundamental rights and rule of law in the country. Next suggestion is that government should restrain from indulging in revenge culture. Now, next suggestion is with respect to NGOs, and they should perform their duty as they are formed because civil society is a carrier of democracy. And if they fail to raise their voice against the cruelty of the state, then their relevance will be in question. And last but not the least, our last suggestion is based on important stakeholder, that is people, as they are the real and largest stakeholders in society. Hence, it is the greatest tool to fight against any wrong in society. So, society should educate its member to follow ethical behavior. It should protest against the government and administration if they do anything unjust. So these are the important suggestions which you can write in your answer if any case study revolved around fake encounters. Now, our discussion is based on this article which appeared on page number 13 in the Indian Express dated 10th April 2023. Context of this article is that school system in India may undergo a major restructuring with an expert committee appointed by union government recommending board examinations twice a year, a semester system for class 12, freedom to students to pursue a mix of science, humanities and commerce subjects among others. Ministry of Education recently released the pre-draft of National Curriculum Framework, that is NCF, for school education system. Now, issues relating to development and management of social sector relating to education is important theme under GS paper 2. Also, UPSC has been asking questions based on different aspects related to education. Like this question based on objectives of population education came in year 2021. Another question based on digital initiatives in India contributed to the functioning of education system in India came in year 2020. This theme is important from prelims perspective also, as this question based on constitutional provisions came in year 2012. Also, this theme is quite important from the perspective of essay and ethics paper for your UPSC mains examination. So let's start our discussion. So first, let's understand what is NCF. NCF was last revised in year 2005 under the Congress-led UPA government, and it is a key document based on textbooks are prepared. So the current set of NCERT textbooks, barring the deletions, all are based on the NCF 2005. Now before 2005, NCF was revised thrice, including once under the NDA government led by Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Under the latest round of revision, which is underway since September 2021, draft framework on early childhood care and education and school education have already been prepared, while work on teacher and adult education is underway. Apart from textbooks, NCF after its adoption by CBSE and other state boards will also restructure various other aspects of the classroom, including choice of subjects, pattern of teaching and assessment. So this was all about NCF. Now, the importance of education is well reflected in our constitution, as Article 21A provides free and compulsory education of all children in the age group of 6 to 14 years as a fundamental right, in such a manner as the state may by law determine. And to ensure the compliance with the said article, Parliament enacted Right to Education Act 2009. Under this act, free and compulsory education is ensured for every child between 3 to 18. So in this further discussion, we will be taking up current issues in education system in India, and what would be the futuristic solution to solve the problem. So the first issue is expenditure on education. The improvement of India's educational system requires more funding. According to Economic Survey 2022 and 23, the budgetary allocation for education as a percentage of total expenditure has dropped over the past 7 years from 10.4% to 9.5%. Now, as you know, National Education Policy 2020 calls for public investment on education to 6% of GDP. And India's education budget has never touched this number yet. As per Economic Survey 21 to 22, expenditure on education as a percentage of GDP was 2.8% between 2019 to 20, 3.1% between 20 to 21, 3.1% between 21 to 22. So with this you can make it out that India's education budget has never touched this number yet. That is 6% of GDP. Now second problem is infrastructure facilities. Now poor building conditions such as leaking toilets, smelly cafeterias, broken furniture, classrooms that are too hot or cold, moldy walls and plaster falling off ceilings make students feel negatively about their school norms and expectations. And this negative perception of the school's social climate contributes to high absenteeism, and in turn that contributes to low test scores and poor academic achievement. And this problem is reason for another issue, that is high dropout rate. Now what is dropout rate? It is measured in terms of percentage of students who leave school before completing their level or grade. It is a critical indicator of the effectiveness of the education system. This you can understand with the help of fact that according to UPSC Plus 2021 to 22, data reveals that the overall dropout rate in school in India is 1.5%, which is lower than the previous year rate of 1.8%. However, this rate is still a concern, especially in certain states. Another problem is student-teacher ratio. Now, pupil-teacher ratio at different levels of education show availability of adequate number of teachers for teaching children enrolled at different grades. So, increase in number of teachers in schools is contributing to focused delivery of education. The country has witnessed substantial reduction in pupil-teacher ratio over the last one decade. According to Ministry of Education, in primary schools, the pupil-teacher ratio was at 43 in 2010 to 11, and this has come down to 26.3% in 20 to 21. While in upper primary school, the pupil-teacher ratio has reduced from 33 in year 10 to 11 to 18.9 between 2020 to 21. Next challenge is learning gap. Now, students in all grades encountered learning gaps or learning losses despite an immediate switch to online schooling during COVID-19 pandemic. Less than 50% of kids have been able to handle studying during the past 2 years, according to Learning Loss Education Recovery Loss 2022 report by Smile Foundation. And according to this report, school closures hindered students from developing social skills. Now the next issue is poor quality education. Now poor quality education is leading to poor learning outcomes in India, ultimately pushing children out of education system and leaving them vulnerable to child labor, abuse and violence. Many classrooms continue to be characterized by teacher-centered rote learning, corporal punishment and discrimination. Another challenge is neglecting practical knowledge. Now, educational institutions in India often neglect the importance of practical experiences. Studies are mostly focused on providing students with theoretical knowledge, which affects their ability to use the knowledge they gain in the right way. So these are important issues in education system in India. Now, having seen the issues in Indian education system, let's see few suggestions. The first in this is quality of education. it is necessary to take measures to uniformly raise the standard of education in India so that everyone has access to fair and impartial information and growth possibility. Second suggestion is to fill vacancies. Government must make sure that vacancies are filled by giving institution more autonomy. The next suggestion is to upgrade curriculum. The curriculum was to be upgraded to meet the evolving and changing needs of the students. So as we have already discussed about learning loss, so learning loss recovery programs have to be included within the curricula. Some schools even incorporate health curriculum to make health education an important part of formal learning. Second suggestion is upskilling and reskilling of teachers. By understanding the pace of advancement in technology and the emergence of new age pedagogy, upskilling and reskilling are going to be the norm even in the years ahead. And in this regard, NCERT has developed performance indicators for elementary school teachers. And this is a framework for assessing teacher performance and providing constructive feedback for further improvement. Another suggestion is to reduce dropout, and this can be achieved by multiple coordinated efforts, for example, midday meal scheme and Digital India. Next suggestion is to promote universal access to primary education. And to achieve this, we have Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, which was launched in year 2021. It focuses on improving school access, enrollment, and retention by providing infrastructure, teacher training, and other support. Another suggestion is to promote universal access to secondary education. And to achieve this, we have RMSA, that is Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan. This program focuses on improving infrastructure, teacher training, and quality of education in secondary schools. Then next is public-private partnership model. This model should be taken into consideration because the PPPs that are well designed can produce innovative school system in India. Then next is assess learning achievement of children. And in this regard, national surveys are carried out by NCERT to assess learning achievement of children in classes 3rd, 5th, 8th and 10th. Also, Government of India has decided to participate in program for international students assessment, that is PISA, to be conducted by the OECD. Next suggestion is evaluation of schools. In order to objectively evaluate the performance of the school education system in the state, Ministry of Human Resource Development has designed 70 indicators-based metrics to grade the states or UTs. Another initiative in this regard is Shala Siddhi, and it is a school standards and evaluation framework developed by National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration, which enables the school to self-evaluate based on 7 key domains. And the last suggestion is proper implementation of National Education Policy 2020. This is the third in the series of national education policies. NEP 2020 seeks to address the entire education system in the country from preschool to doctoral studies and from professional degrees to vocational training. Now let's quickly understand the recommendations for school education in NEP 2020. It focuses on easier board exam, reduction in the syllabus to retain core essential, and focuses on experimental learning and critical thinking. Another important feature is that in a significant shift from 1986 policy, which pushed for 10+2 structure of school education, this NEP proposes 5+3+3+4 design corresponding to the age groups. Now this is for 3 to 8 years and this is known as foundational stage. This one is for 8 to 11 years and this is known as preparatory stage. This is for 11 to 14 years and this is known as middle stage, and this one is for secondary stage, that is between 14 to 18 years. Now this brings early childhood education, also known as preschool education for children of 3 to 5 years under formal schooling. Another important feature is it also proposes the extension of right to education to all children up to age of 18 years. Also, A new school curriculum will be introduced in the schools of a new national curricular framework for education, that is NCFSE, which will be undertaken by the NCRT. Last but not the least, one of the most important recommendations is that the policy proposes that students until class 5 should be taught in their mother language or regional language. Now, recommendations in NEP have different timelines as the policy is made for next 20 years. Therefore, the implementation of NEP is being carried out in a phased manner. Indian education system has already passed through many success and failures. National Education Policy 2020 may bring watershed changes in educational landscape of India. Having said that, it all depends on its implementation and coordinate efforts by the various stakeholders. Inclusive and quality education was mentioned in SDG Goal 4, and it should be target for Indian education system as it is indispensable component to harness the potential of demographic dividend. Now, our next discussion is based on this article which appeared on page number 5 in the Hindu newspaper dated 16th April 2023. Context of this article is that a court in Maharashtra Thane district recently granted permanent exemption to Congress leader Rahul Gandhi from appearing before it in a defamation case filed against him in 2014 by RSS functionary. Now here, one must understand about the defamation because it is one of the potential topics from where UPSC can ask question. It comes under GS paper 2. So in this discussion, we will be taking up what is defamation is all about and how defamation is an exception to right to freedom of speech. Then we'll discuss why is defamation a crime, and then we'll discuss why defamation should remain a criminal offense. So let's start our discussion. Now we'll start our discussion with what is defamation? It refers to the act of publication of defamatory content that lowers the reputation of an individual or an entity when observed through the perspective of an ordinary man. Now defamation can occur in two forms. First is libel, another one is slander. Now what is libel? It is a kind of defamation that is present in some permanent form, such as writing, printed or picture. Whereas slander is a kind of defamation that is present in an unwritten form, such as spoken words, gestures or representation made with hands. In English law, there is a distinction made between both of the forms under the categories of criminal defamation and civil defamation. Under criminal law, only libel is an offense and not slander, whereas in civil law, libel is an offense just like in criminal law. But the change here is that slander is also an offense when provided with proof. Now in Indian law, both libel and slander are recognized as criminal offences under section 499 of IPC. The offence of defamation was included by Lord Thomas Macaulay for the first time in the draft IPC in 1838 and codified in law in 1860 based on prevailing English law. So now this is all about what is defamation. So now let's understand how defamation is an exception to the right to freedom of speech. Now Article 19 of Indian Constitution grants various freedom to its citizen. However, Article 19 subclause 2 impose reasonable exemptions to freedom of speech and expression granted under Article 19(1)(a), that is contempt of court, defamation and incitement to an offence are some exceptions. So now let's see a few legal provisions. Now section 499 and 500 of IPC deals with criminal defamation. While section 499 defines offence of defamation, section 500 defines the punishment for it. So according to section 499, whosoever by words, either spoken or intended, to be read by signs or by visible representation, makes or publish any imputation concerning any person intending to harm or knowing or having reason to believe that such imputation will harm the reputation of such person is said except in the cases hereinafter expected to defame that person. Now, under section 500, whoever defames another shall be punished with a simple imprisonment for a term which may extend to 2 years, or with fine, or with both. So, these are the legal provisions related to criminal defamation. Now, let's understand why defamation is a crime. Now, as reputation is an asset to each and everyone, any damage to such asset can be legally dealt with. So, defamation laws have been enacted to prevent persons maliciously using their right to freedom of speech and expression. Because Indian law has rightly not made any distinction between libel and slander. Otherwise, there could have been chances for committing slander and escaping from laws that there is no written publication of matter. To understand it in a better way, let us take example of Subramanian Swamy versus Union of India. In year 2014, Dr. Subramanian Swamy alleged corruption on Miss Jayalalitha, after which Miss Jayalalitha framed defamation charges on Dr. Swamy. He in turn challenged the constitutional validity of Section 499 and Section 500 of the IPC. The court in this case upheld the constitutional validity of the offence of criminal defamation and ruled out that Section 499 and Section 500 of the Indian Penal Code impose reasonable restrictions on the right to freedom of speech and expression. So now, let's discuss why defamation should remain a criminal offence. So first we'll see arguments in favor. First in this is income inequality. Defamation should remain a penal offence in India as defamer may be too poor to compensate the victim in some cases. Second argument is anonymity provided by internet. Since there is no mechanism to censor the internet from within, online defamation could only be adequately countered by retaining defamation as a criminal offence. Another argument is criminalization of defamation is part of states' compelling interest to protect the right to dignity and good reputation of its citizens, mentioned under Article 21. Now, as sections 499 and 500 have 10 exceptions, and these exceptions clearly exclude from its ambit any speech that is truthful, made in good faith, and or is for public good. So these are important arguments in favor that defamation should remain a criminal offence. Now let's see arguments in against. First in this category is it is against the global trend, as many countries worldwide are in favor of treating defamation as civil wrong, not as criminal offence. Also, in 2011, Human Rights Committee of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights called upon states to abolish criminal defamation, noting that it intimidates citizens and makes them shy away from exposing wrongdoings. Second argument in this category is misuse by influential. Now, misuse of law as instrument of harassment is also pervasive in India. Often, prosecutors' complaint is taken at face value by courts, which send out routine notice for the appearance of defendants without any preliminary examination. So thus, the process itself becomes the punishment. Criminal defamation has a severe effect on society. For instance, state uses it as means to coerce the media and political opponents into adopting self-censorship and unwarranted self-restraint. Also, the law can be used by groups or sections claiming to have been hurted or insulted and abuse the process by initiating multiple proceedings in different places. Another argument is defamatory acts that may harm public order are covered by Section 124, 153 and 153A. So criminal defamation does not serve any overarching public interest. Even though Section 499 provides safeguards by means of exceptions, The threat of criminal prosecution is in itself unreasonable and excessive. So these are few relevant arguments against treating defamation as a criminal offense. So having seen arguments in favor and against, one can conclude that there is definitely a need for defamation law to ensure that reputations are protected. However, the answer lies in strengthening civil defamation and redress provisions as in UK, which has outlawed criminal defamation. Now, inspiration of our first pre-pointer, that is this pre-pointer, comes from this news which featured on page number 16 of the Indian Express newspaper dated 13th April 2023. Now, this news covers the details and facts related to JUICE mission. Now, let's understand more about this mission with the help of true and false. So, the first statement is JUICE is a Jupiter Explorer mission of NASA and JAXA, that is Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. Now this statement is false because European Space Agency has launched the Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer or JUICE mission on 14th April 2023 from its spaceport in French Guiana on an Ariane 5 launcher. Now this mission aims to carry out a detailed exploration of the solar system's largest planet and its icy moons, that is Ganymede, Callisto, Europa, which potentially have habitable environments. And this mission planned to reach Jupiter in year 2031. So now let's come to the second statement. It would be the first ever spacecraft with an objective of examining the planet Jupiter. Now again this statement is false because it would be the third spacecraft that is going to examine Jupiter. Till now, only two other spacecraft have ever examined Jupiter. The first is Galileo probe, which orbited the gas giant between 1995 and 2003. Second one is Juno, which has been circling the planet since 2016. Now let's come to the third statement. Europa Clipper is a planned Jupiter Explorer mission of European Space Agency. Now again this statement is false because by that time JUICE reaches Jupiter, another spacecraft, and that is of NASA's Europa Clipper would already be orbiting the planet, scheduled to be launched in October this year. So Europa Clipper would arrive at Jupiter in 2030 and it aims to study its Europa moon. Last statement is JUICE is equipped with capability of detecting life. Now the three moons, Ganymede, Callisto, Europa, are believed to hold immense amounts of water, which could be around 6 times more than the volume of water in Earth's ocean. So there is a possibility that life is present on them. According to European Space Agency, life on these moons could be in the form of microbes. However, JUICE is not equipped to detect life. What it is capable of, it's finding out whether there could be places around Jupiter inside the icy moons where the necessary conditions such as water, biological essential elements, energy and stability to sustain life are present. So this statement is false. Now inspiration of this pre-pointer comes from this news which featured in the Indian Express newspaper, page number 24, dated 14th April 2023. Context of this article is that recently Union Home Minister Mr. Amit Shah was in Arunachal Pradesh for the launch of the Vibrant Villages program in the border village of Kibitu. Now as you know, the constant threat along the country's border amid the ongoing standoff with China has led to a concentrated push to upgrade the infrastructure in the border areas. So to this end, Union Cabinet on February 15 approved the allocation of Rs 4,800 crores for the Centre's Vibrant Villages program. So let's understand more about this program with the help of true and false. So the first statement is, this scheme aims to develop selected villages in all over India as cultural hubs. Now, the program's target are to provide comprehensive development of villages on the border with China and the improvement in the quality of life of people living in identified border villages. So it's not in all over India. it is limited to border villages. So hence this statement is false. So the development in these villages will help in prevent migration and thus also boost border security. Now let's come to the second statement. It is a center sector scheme. Now before finding out whether this statement is true or false, you should know that center sector scheme are those schemes that are implemented by a central agency and 100% funded by center on subjects within union list. Whereas central sponsored scheme are funded by union government as well as state government but implemented by state government. So now let's come to the second statement. Vibrant Villages program is a center sector scheme. This statement is false because it is a centrally sponsored scheme, and under this scheme 2,967 villages in 46 blocks of 19 districts have been identified for comprehensive development. These villages around the border in the states of Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh and Union Territory of Ladakh. Now let's come to the third statement. Ministry of Rural Development will prepare action plans for the identified villages. Now again this statement is false because district administration will prepare action plans with the help of Gram Panchayats for the identified villages to ensure 100% saturation of central and state schemes. And the last statement is the aim of the scheme is to identify and develop the economic drivers based on local, natural and human resources. Now the statement is true as aim of the scheme is to identify and develop the economic drivers based on local, natural, human and other resources of the border villages. Another aim is development of growth centers on the hub and spoke model through promotion of social entrepreneurship, empowerment of youth and women through skill development. Next, it intends to leverage tourism potential through promotion of local cultural, traditional knowledge and heritage in the border areas. Also, the scheme envisages that drinking water, 24/7 electricity, connectivity with all weather roads, mobile and internet connectivity be made available in the border areas. And last, special attention will be given to solar and wind energy, tourist centers, health infrastructure and wellness centers. So these are the aims of the scheme. Now our next pre-pointer is based on this news article which appeared on page number 10 in the Indian Express dated 13th April. Now context of this article is that government has given the final go ahead to India's Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory or LIGO project, clearing the way for the construction of country's biggest scientific facility that will join the ongoing global project to probe the universe by detecting and studying gravitational waves. So let's understand more about this project with the help of true and false. So the first statement is LIGO Laboratories aims to detect the ripples in space-time which were first postulated in Newton's law of gravitation. Now LIGO is an international network of laboratories that detect the ripples in the space-time. And the reason behind these ripples is the movement of large celestial objects like stars or planets. So the first part of the statement is correct. However, these ripples were first postulated in Albert Einstein's general theory of relativity that encapsulates our current understanding of how gravitation works. So here, our first statement is false. Now let's come to the second statement. Till now, the laboratories have failed to detect any evidence of gravitational waves. Now the first ever detection of gravitational waves happened in year 2015 by the two US-based LIGO detectors. These gravitational waves were produced by the merger of two black holes which were about 29 and 36 times the mass of Sun. And this achievement was rewarded with the Nobel Prize in year 2017. Since then, 9 more gravitational wave events have been detected by the 4 observatories in United States, Europe and Japan. So our second statement is false. Now let's come to the third statement. LIGO India would be the first node of this international network which would be located outside USA. Now LIGO India for which the government approval was given on Thursday, would be the fifth node of this international network of gravitational wave observatories, and possibly the last one. This will be located in Hingoli district of Maharashtra and is scheduled to begin scientific runs from 2030. LIGO has two widely separated identical sites working in unison as a single observatory, one in southern eastern Washington state and the other in rural Livingston, Louisiana, while sister facilities are located in Vargo in Italy, Geo 600 in Germany, and Kagra in Japan. So our third statement is false.